Oh, they've done it! Steven Terodde, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau und Weiß sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan. How are you doing, Jack?
Doing excellent. Apparently, GLADBACH is just the secret sauce for us this season. For whatever reason, they have not been able to solve the puzzle that is Schalke. I think a 2-2 draw earlier in the season, which was one of our better performances, and then get a result here as well, which is which we'll get into, but I think most people would find hopefully pretty promising based on how we looked as well.
100%. We should play GLADBACH more often, it seems like, right? We also got before we went on the huge losing streak, before we got relegated, the last win was against GLADBACH, 2-0. So we seem to have their number, which everybody, it's funny. GLADBACH are the bogey team for Bayern. We're the bogey team for GLADBACH. It just works out that way, right? No, we can't beat Bayern. Anyway, before we get into proceedings today, it is the 3-year anniversary of Rudi Assauer's death. So Schalke and everyone, all Royal Blue family has been honoring his passing, the memory of his passing, I should say. Today, also tragically, huge earthquake over in the Middle East, Turkey, Syria, I think in the Lebanon area. Lots of casualties. It's a tragic day. Obviously, the whole world is thinking of Turkey and them, and we send our condolences there, Jack. But no easy way to transition back into Schalke. But a difficult day overall. Not a day of remembering, and not a day of wishing and praying, I guess. So going over to Schalke and the game against GLADBACH, there's no easy way to transition. Like I said, you mentioned it. Drew the game 0-0. I see Eric's in the chat. Eric, good evening, sir. Good evening. Good to have you on. We obviously came off the backs of the game against Cologne, 0-0 in that game. Played okay. I mean, obviously some key takeaways. Salazar was good, as was Kozuki. Moritz Jens played very well as well, and Fahrmann got a shutout. And so going against GLADBACH, we knew we had to get some kind of result because at the time we were 5 points back from Hertha, who were in 17th place, right? If I'm not mistaken, we were a good bit back.
I don't remember the specific math at the point last week, but
yeah. But we needed to get some kind of result in this one. And 0-0, we drew them, like you mentioned. We a good okay result. It's okay result. I think that game, and we'll get into it more, but I think the game was calling for a Schalke goal. It was a recipe for Schalke to score goals. We just can't find the back of the net, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 consecutive clean sheets since Jens and Fahrmann came into the lineup, which is super promising. Unfortunately, it's also 2 consecutive 0-0 draws, and that's a problem. Is we are at the depths of the table. We need to climb. If you're going to climb, you need to win some games. If you're going to win games, you got to score goals. Yeah. So while the clean sheets are much needed and very much appreciated, it's been great to see some improved organization the past 2 weeks. Yeah. At some point, we got to find the back of the net. We've been struggling to do that. I think we did a decent job in this game in getting in sort of like danger adjacent situations where like we had the potential for something to become dangerous very quickly if the final ball went through, if somebody had a clean touch. And unfortunately, so many of these situations we're killing ourselves with sort of unforced errors. Like I said, just a bad pass when there's like a through ball available, that kind of thing, or a bad touch before the situation can really get to like maximum potential. So, unfortunate. But I think overall, in terms of the performance, while the result's not what we need, it was a result that we'll take, I think, against the top half GLADBACH team, and the performance itself. We were thoroughly competent. That's not something we can say for most of the season so far. I think one of the ways to look at it is, if you had watched that game and did not know where Schalke was on the table when you were watching that game, would your assumption have been that they were at the bottom of the table? No. For me, I would have said absolutely not. We looked every bit as competitive as GLADBACH, if not slightly better. particularly at the end of the second half when the game kind of opened up a little bit more and we started piling on the chances. So I think some strong some things to take away positively from the past two results. And yeah, we need to get the wins. We need to score the goals. But these performances are much improved and gives me a little bit more hope for trying to make the climb.
You Schalke fans were thinking, where the hell has this been all season, right? They look at least in Bundesliga squad, and this is a similar theme we were talking about the last game, where lots of chances created, not that final product was missing, and again, create a bunch of danger adjacent plays, and just that last play is missing, whether it's Terodde or whomever. Overall, and the game we got better as the game went on, which is a rarity. It seems like usually we start the game well, and then it eventually fades into oblivion, but a nice change of pace in that regard. So there are positives. I agree about that. Before we get into the lineup, I see Wafflo's in the house. I do want to do a quick plug here. New website is up. Check it out, SchalkeMerica.com. You can just scroll around there. We got blogs out there. We're going to try to write some more. Obviously, that all this kind of stuff. Now check it out. It's still in the works, but we mentioned the Discord channel. Discord channel is up. If you stick around to the end of the podcast, we'll send you an exclusive invite. Be the first ones to be on the Discord. Bear with us. We're working through it as best we can as we get as it evolves. But nonetheless, let's get back to the lineups, Jack. Little deviation there. Let me put the lineups on the screen here. Looking at our starting lineup, Fahrmann obviously back in net, like you said. Uronen, Jens, Yoshida, Brunner in the back. We went with 33. Whoa! Oh, the new guy. The new guy's playing the holding midfielder role. I'm used to seeing his first name, not his last name. Now the name's escaping me, his first name. But Kazuki, Kral, Kraus, and Schalke ahead of him with Terodde up top. This is the same as the 4-5-1. I looked at it more as like a 4-2-3-1, Jack. I don't know how you looked at it, but thoughts on the lineup?
Yeah, I definitely saw it more as either like a 4-5-1 or sort of a 4-3-3 shape. Kind of if you wanted to look at it that way too. More than a 4-2-3-1, which is what we've been playing recently. It was kind of flexible in different phases of the game, though. I think actually against the ball, it almost looked at times we were playing almost like a 4-4-2 diamond, where one of the wingers would come up to occupy the opposite center back from whatever one Terodde was occupying, and then we'd have somebody covering their central attacking midfielder from their 4-2-3-1 as well. So almost kind of like a 4-4-2 diamond against the ball. At times it was interesting. So like at times that'd be Kazuki that was coming up. At times it'd be Schalke that was coming up. Always alongside Terodde, but interesting that Terodde gets the start here. Maybe not. Obviously he's supposed to be our premier guy, and potentially Rice wants to give him a little bit more time. I just kind of, I guess, was at a point where I wouldn't have been surprised if we started seeing less of him in a starting role, but we'll see how that goes going forward. Kazuki starting again, which we'd love to see, obviously, based on how he started. Schalke, decent performance in his debut last week, so I wasn't upset about seeing him. I'm not surprised until they see him over like Bolter right on the left wing.
Improved performance, I thought.
Yeah. Balanta straight into the lineup. Found that mildly interesting, and that Danny Lotz was out of the squad entirely. Was he injured? I don't know, but
I didn't catch that, but maybe.
Kral and Kraus, two faces we're very familiar with. Ernen back in there in the starting lineup again, and then Jens Yoshida, same kind of basically the same back five, back four plus goalies as we had last week.
Yeah, some guys that were introduced in the second half. Brunner picked up an injury. He came out. Mehmet Aydin, we got to see him for the first time in a few weeks. Thomas Oyan back in our lives. He's back in. I have a feeling he'll be starting the next game. He looked pretty decent coming on. Bolter came on, I think, for Schalke at one point, or maybe it was Kazuki. I think it was Kazuki. Terodde came off for Michael Frey and Fry, and he the jury's still out about who should be our top striker, because none of them are performing at the moment. Frey's gotten close, I guess, recently, the few games he's played. But overall, not a bad game. You mentioned it. We kept getting better and better. I think the one thing that my one big gripe in this game, outside of the goals, is no Rodrigo Salazar. I thought this game was begging for Salazar. The game, as you mentioned, we started out fairly slow. A lot of possession there for Gladbach in the first half. We were bending, not breaking. Fahrmann may hit some saves when he had to. But again, we kept it 0-0, and I think by holding it to 0-0 and at halftime, it kind of projected us into that second half and kind of started building momentum. Game got wide open, like you said, started getting chance after chance. And the one guy I thought we could have used in that second half, I don't know what you thought, Rodrigo Salazar for me was a guy who should have came on early, not just come on, but coming early. That didn't happen at all. Thoughts on the omission of Salazar?
Well, I agree, particularly as I mentioned, kind of later, maybe the last 15 minutes or so, the game really opened up and started becoming a little bit more chaotic end to end, which I think was to our benefit. I think if we had Salazar in those transitional moments when there was a lot more space, that definitely could have been useful. Maybe we get the goal that we needed. I do think Rice came out midweek and basically said, hey, I know that everyone wants to see Salazar, but he actually isn't 100% yet, and so we need to be careful with him. So perhaps that's the reason for the lack of sort of consecutive usages. I find that somewhat suspect, just because he came in and he looked pretty good and looked pretty fine. I mean, like he was playing it. He didn't look like he was nursing an injury or not at 100%. He looked pretty sharp as well.
Played like 30 minutes or something small.
Exactly. So I'm not saying that Salazar needs to start right now if we're trying to kind of work him back to fitness or something, but like the idea that he can't play at all is interesting. Maybe it was a tactical thing, who knows? But yeah, I don't know what you mean. I mean, we're obviously going to be frustrated to not have Salazar on the pitch. We're struggling to score goals. Salazar is one of our most dangerous offensive threats. So naturally, we're going to want to see him as much as possible, but hopefully we get that, in the next game against Wolfsburg.
Gladbach, certainly a team that can be dangerous, right? Obviously, the guys like Marco Thuram, Kramer, Hoffman have always, at Stindl, they've always terrorized us. A guy I was thrilled not to see start was Plié. When Plié and Thuram get together, I mean, it's usually lights out. Those guys are so magnificent together. He didn't start in this one, which was nice to see. Though Gladbach played their best when he wasn't on the pitch. I think for me, the best player on the pitch for Gladbach, outside of Omlin made some good saves in the game. I think Kone was everywhere, I thought, in the first half. Very influential, bringing the ball up, being the creative spark, it seemed like, getting some chances. That was my big worry in the first half and even parts of the second half before he came out, that Kone was going to be the one who's going to split us open. Did you have that same feeling, or was there anybody else on the team that you thought was playing particularly well against us?
Yeah, I thought Kone, particularly in the first half, was finding some opportunities around the edge of the box, kind of on the shoulder to, people were kind of backing off him a little bit, and he was whipping some shots in. Forced at least one, pretty good save from Fahrmann. So yeah, he was shifty. He was, he's pretty clean on the ball. He definitely looked dangerous. I thought there were a couple Gladbach players who were pretty good. I thought Hoffman was decent this one. I thought both of their fullbacks were pretty good. In this game, Itakura was great. Had like one marauding run in the first half that he also took a shot off and forced a save from Fahrmann, which was pretty scary. Love Itakura. Didn't love that against us. But fortunately, I think Kramer was kind of poor in this one. Thuram was okay. Stindl was okay. So I think some of their offensive players weren't maybe firing on full cylinders.
Stindl missed point blank a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, I think they didn't really create any more than we did, is what I'm saying. Like they were not like significantly more dangerous than we were in this game. I think we had a similar number of shots, a similar number of shots on target, a similar number of kind of like big chances, that kind of stuff. There was a lot of stats that were pretty, much in line in this game. There you go. And possession, not crazy out of whack either. So, like I said, this was a game where we looked very much in it, very much competitive, despite, maybe not winning the XG battle in this one. We were pretty close to it and looked the more likely to score in terms of kind of the momentum of the game. At least once again, it's kind of like we didn't create the chance. We were like one pass away from there being a chance kind of there to be had. And we just couldn't get it, but certainly worked our asses off in this game. Like Schalke was very industrious, also had a decent number of shots in this one too, but we looked very organized. It's always easy to tell, like when you go from a situation where it's kind of chaotic and you go to a coach that suddenly has like a plan and some structure, and you can see some defined shapes and the way they're going about trying to break people down and everything, or defend against the ball. It's nice to see. So definitely the last two games in particular, not what we want to see offensively ultimately, but much better organized, and very solid. And at least gives us a platform to try to attack the rest of the season, which was what we needed. We needed to calm down after that Leipzig game, because that could have really shaken the confidence and everything.
Absolutely, it could have. So we bounced back pretty nice after that game. Shout out to Eric. I already said hi to Eric. Wafflo, Edwin's in the house, as is Mr. Gambino, and Cascadian Pixie on Twitch. And he says, they say, if we keep playing like that, we'll get ourselves out of the cellar. I agree. If they played the way we played against Gladbach, even Cologne to an extent, we should be out because we look like a Bundesliga team. We just got to get some goals. And that's that thing. We got to, once we can unlock that, whether it's Kazuki, Schalke, Salazar, whomever, we need to get some goals. That's the bottom line. So getting shutouts is nice. It's good for Fahrmann's confidence. It's good for defense confidence. I think Jens has been a revelation for us in the 2 games he's played with us. It's gonna be good to have Oyan back. Brunner, we'll see what his status is gonna be, but I'm confident with Mehmet Aydin as a right back. Maybe not so much Matriciani. But I agree with your point about Schalke. Schalke, I thought, was much better in this game than he was in the last game. Not that he was poor in the last game. The last game he looked like he was lacking pace in some of those counterattacks, and in this game I thought he was actually looked fairly pacey compared to the week before.
Yeah, I think Schalke and Kazuki actually was our wingers that were our most dangerous players in this game.
Yeah.
Both in terms of like the shots they were taking, everything, and then obviously Kazuki won some corners, won some free kicks for us as well. So helped create some set pieces. So both of our wingers actually, which is funny because like for the last several years, like our winger play has been like non-existent or like very very weak. And then finally out of nowhere, we managed to bring in Schalke on loan. Kazuki, we just kind of pull out of a hat, it seems, and fortunately getting a little bit of, if not production necessarily in terms of a ton of like goals or anything, and at least some decent performances from those positions. So hopefully that continues. Balanta in the midfield. Thought he was kind of suspect in with the ball at his feet.
Early yellow.
But yeah, definitely solid in challenges. And if we're bringing him in to just be an enforcer, which potentially allows maybe Tom Kraus to get forward a little bit more, I'm kind of okay with that. So we'll see how he does. Yeah, it definitely looks like a walking red card. And not the best with his passing in this game.
Don't we have that with Krall already?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you thought it was Krall. Balanta certainly looks more like it. He's, like he slapped somebody in the face.
He looked physical. He looked physical.
Yeah,
someone made a comment about the next Jermaine Jones. It possibly could be, right?
But thoughts on his performance overall? I thought it was decent.
I agree. I thought it was decent. When he got the early yellow, I was like, oh, what's going to happen here? He's going to have to come off. But he composed himself afterwards and eventually came off, late in the second half. But I thought it was a decent performance. When he had to, he would make some tackles, played physical, what I think you need to, because some of these teams in the Bundesliga, you have to be more physical to kind of intimidate them to play back into the wings, right? And I think Balanta did well at that in that aspect. But yeah, it was overall decent performance by him. Hopefully he can contain those yellows for a little bit later in the game, so it doesn't leave us, pulling our hair out possibly. But let's see what Eric says here. He says, I thought Kraus was pushing forward hard as well. Reminded me a little bit of the old Goretzka. Yeah. Kraus has been, I think, undoubtedly our best player this year. He's been the most consistent. He's given us the most opportunities. He'll go for shots, all the time. Very similar to what Salazar was doing for us last season in the Zweite Liga. So, yeah, overall good performance. I mean, that second, like you said, once that game started opening up in the second half, we started creating those chances and getting more and more. We looked more dangerous to the two teams. And I was hoping and praying that we were going to get a goal. We just could, like you said, we couldn't find that final pass. Itakura made a good stop on Bulter at one point, 1-on-1. Omlin had a couple of big saves in the second half. I think maybe on Fry or
one of them on Terodde as well from kind of
Terodde, yeah. Kraus as well, right? A header maybe again in this game.
Yeah, possibly.
But ended up 0-0. Was it like 5 minutes of stoppage time or something? We get so close in the third or fourth minute stoppage time, but not meant to be. 0-0. Overall, not the worst result, right? Because we picked up a point. Now we're within 3. So I think we were 4 points back before on Hertha. We're now 3 points behind Hertha, 5 behind Stuttgart for the last 2 spots in the relegation there. So not bad. It could be a lot worse, obviously.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is this is the first time in a while that I feel like we put in the performance where I was like, that looked like a solid Bundesliga team.
Yeah,
playing that game.
Yeah,
which has been a problem. Also, Sepp Vandenberg back in training, so there's a chance that he
I saw
the
that
next couple weeks. So he actually may be able to play a role this season, which would be nice if we could give Yoshida some rest and have some depth potentially at the center back position. Morris Jens, while we're talking about center backs, another good performance from him. I felt made a incredible recovery run at one point. and sliding challenge in the box to potentially save a goal. I think that was on Term, right? Or was that later in the game on somebody else? I forget. But
no, it was on Term. Yep.
Yeah. So, nice performance from him again. Cedric Brunner, I hope he's okay with that injury. I got hit in the face. Cedric Brunner is not somebody that has really ever blown me away. I think that was maybe his best performance.
Who was?
Brunner. So far. I thought Brunner was very good in this game. I thought he was crisp and kind of quick with his passing and decision making. I thought he was a little bit more aggressive in transition and was playing a bigger role in the final third and in some of those midfield spaces than he typically does in possession. I thought it was a good performance from Brunner. So hopefully he's okay. The one positive, if it isn't, is that potentially it kind of forces us to see a little bit more of Chan. If he gets an extended run of games here, then maybe we could finally definitively kind of form an opinion on him. We just haven't seen him long enough or consistently enough, I think, to kind of like really definitively or concretely establish his level. But and then the other thing I wanted to mention real quick in terms of the last kind of player thing is just Fahrmann. 4 saves today, one really nice one with his legs on that kind of like triple save thing where he had like a couple players block a shot. Like once again, Fahrmann contributing to 2 consecutive clean sheets. Hopefully he keeps it up. Was pretty good in terms of his long passing as well, in terms of his accuracy there. I think he was like 66% completion on his launch passes, which is an improvement of what we've seen sometimes recently as well. So not bad overall. I'm pleased with that.
Sticking on the defensive front, I thought this is the first game I saw that I was unimpressed with Uranen, the youngster. I thought he was very quiet in this game when he is called to be much bigger role, right? I thought Brunner, fantastic, a good game, like you said. He was definitely more evident than Uranen was, and I thought when Oyan came on, it was a lot better, even though it was a small sample size, right? And Yoshida, he's been playing well the last 2 games. He's been helping Jens in the last 2 games, helping with the shutouts that Fahrmann's been getting, and that triple save you talked about. I think Jens, Fahrmann, and Yoshida all got a block on that one play. Though it'll be a question. I mean, like, who would Jens has got to stay in the lineup if you bring Sepp Vandenberg back in? Do you just play Vandenberg on the bench? I mean, Yoshida, his obviously big telling weakness is the speed, because he can read the game. He's very intelligent, but the pace he does not have. And Sepp Vandenberg is a little bit more pacey, a little bit.
Yeah, I think Jens has looked good so far. I don't think you necessarily have to rush Vandenberg back into the lineup, but it would be, once again, an opportunity to rest an older Yoshida's legs, who's been sort of our mainstay all season. Or, I don't know, like I said, just keep people fresh and have some depth if needed.
It's important.
It'd be nice to have, a third competent center back. As far as Erning goes, I thought he was very tidy with his passing, but I don't think he was particularly dangerous with any of it. Like, I don't think and when you're playing like the left back position, for example, you would expect to maybe have like a decent like progressive passing distance. I don't think he did in this one. So I just he was fine. It just I don't think he really stood out in this game. Oyan looked pretty good when he came on. One big defensive play from Oyan as well. I don't know. I would still prefer Thomas Oyan. I think he looked bad kind of in the first half of the season at times, but I'd give him another shot still. Would you agree his crossing and everything, his delivery was just like weirdly not on par?
Yeah, it's kind of what we saw with Oyan first half of the season, where it just wasn't get to where we needed to be. And so that has to improve. He's young, I get it, but he certainly needs to work on his crossing ability for sure, and helping out in the final third with the assists or whatever. I think he needs to get more involved. I don't know about you. I mean, if Brunner is not ready to go, I am personally salivating at the opportunity that you see Oyan and Chan Aiden on either side, just marauding down the pitch, swinging in balls for Terodde or whomever in the middle. I want to see that because we haven't seen that much this season. We saw it last season in Fight the Liga. We have yet to see it in this league so far. You just see when one wing is on, the other one's off. I can see both on for once and see what happens.
And I would agree. I think both of those players in particular, over Uranen and Brunner, are more likely to get forward and whip in some of those balls and be more impactful in the final third in the offensive end. So, like I said, hopefully Brunner's okay. We need the depth for sure, and Brunner actually looked very good in this game. But wouldn't be upset to see more of Aiden as well.
And I think the rotation thing is going to be big coming up here. And remaining here in February, we have obviously Wolfsburg this Friday, Union Berlin following that the Sunday following, and then Stuttgart before we get into some heavy games in March. So rotation may be required, especially for the defense for the defenders, especially Yoshida. And I mean, maybe it's an Union Berlin match and you bring in Sepp Vandenberg, because I think between Wolfsburg and Union Berlin, Wolfsburg probably the more winnable game if you're going to win. Stuttgart's obviously the game you want to have, so give Yoshida a break, and Union Berlin having come back for Stuttgart ready and healthy, get with more energy, and then hopefully we can steal 3 points there from our friends at Stuttgart Americana. But I agree with your point there. The rotation probably needs to happen, especially down the stretch here, because we've had way too many injuries, and as the team is getting healthier, maybe to Rice's point, you want to hold back a little bit and kind of rotate a little bit more, right? And hopefully see a lot more Salazar on that note as well. But yeah,
I haven't looked at the schedule, but like I'm assuming there's probably going to be another like English Volca at some point before the end of the season as well. Maybe there won't be, but if there is, that would be another time where it's once again useful to have that additional option. Kaminsky is healthy as well, I think, right? We've seen him on the bench recently, I think, and he was out for most of the first half of the season too. So don't know how he would look in the Bundesliga at this level. We haven't really seen a lot of him this season, but potentially another option. So nice that we're finally getting kind of close to our full complement of players. That was a huge part of the issue. The first couple games of the season, we looked okay, looked like there was a chance that we could kind of hang around, and then the injuries hit, and it very much deteriorated. But we've gotten a couple important reinforcements, it looks like, during the Winterpause and in this winter break. And then in addition to that, we're getting some of our players healthy as well. I think Rice is providing some additional organization, and it gives us a platform to try to do something. It's still going to be a tough climb, and I'm not saying that have suddenly flipped the script over the course of 2 weeks, but I'm definitely more optimistic than I was, I think, when we were sitting at home watching the World Cup, kind of pondering our future there.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I agree. I'm looking here at the schedule, and it looks like we don't have an English Volca for the remainder of the season. Obviously, we're out of the Pokal, but most of the games are 6 to 9 days apart from here on out. So I mean, unless something happens where we got to reschedule a game or something, we should not have an English Volca. Now, it doesn't mean teams like Dortmund or Leverkusen or something like that might not have it, or Bayern, right? But I don't see one right now, so that's good at least, right? Because I don't think we would do well in those kind of weeks. Obviously, we did okay, got shellacked, in the middle of those 3 games, but overall it wasn't bad. I should take that back. We lost 3-0 in the first game, but I digress.
Not a representative 3-0 though.
Correct.
It was much better for most.
I
agree. I think 2 of those were late goals that were just kind of fell apart. But
I agree.
Decent in that game.
I agree. Next game is against Wolfsburg. Why don't you tell the chat your thoughts on the game ahead while I send them the Discord link?
Sure thing. Well, Wolfsburg, decent campaign. Once again, been a team that's really kind of kicked our ass recently. If I'm being honest, if memory serves, I feel like most of the time we faced them over the past few years, it has not gone particularly well for us. They're coming off of a defeat, I believe, but that's a 4-2 defeat to Bayern Munich, which is certainly understandable despite, your feelings on Bayern Munich's relative performances this season, maybe compared to what they're capable of. Yeah, it's going to be another tough one. But if we can play like this against Gladbach, potentially there's a chance we can repeat that. It'd be interesting to see, who's starting at the number 9 position for us, whether or not it's Terodde, whether it's Frey, somebody else gets a look. Richard, you wonder if at some point we do see Top this season. I find it unlikely,
so.
but maybe if we keep
same thing with Sidi Sane, right? Sidi Sane, you want to see him, and
that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, particularly if we're not scoring goals, you wonder if they try to change the personnel again at some point this season and do something there. But looking forward to seeing more of Kazuki. Hopefully some Salazar back into the lineup. And I wouldn't be upset if Schalke was starting again. I've been okay with him so far. How about you?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I agree with also with El Wafflo saying we should have won probably in the Hinrunde in that game. I'm hoping that they're at a place where they're still battling for Europe at this point, but they're 5 points away. Maybe they're convinced enough that they're not going to get it, that there's so much a gap that they're going to be on this what I like to call vacation mode. And you're just playing, you're just playing through the motions and not really invested in the game. And hopefully Schalke can catch them by surprise. That's my hope. I don't think it's going to happen. It's still too early for that. But it's a team certainly that I think we can. I mean, we did okay in the first matchup, but like I said, against them, and there's some players obviously that frighten me on their team. But overall, if we can contain some of those guys like Baku, who was pretty strong in the last game, we'll that's the key. block down their danger men and have a good game plan like Rice has had the last 2 games, and for heaven's sake, find a way to score. If we can find a way to score and we somehow play the way we've been playing defensively, I that's all I really want, right? We have to be strong defensively. That is number 1. But we also got to score goals. We can't win. We can't just tire ourselves away down the rest of the stretch and hope to be surviving.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Absolutely. Like I said at the top, the improved defense, the clean sheets recently have been a welcome change of pace, particularly on the heels of that drubbing that we had against Leipzig. But at some point, got to find the back of the net. Don't know who it's going to come from, but it's got to come from somewhere. I think if you were a gambling man, you'd probably bet that Zalazar has something to do with it, probably Kazuki as well. Would love to see those two on the pitch together more often with more minutes down the stretch. I think maybe we drew Wolfsburg earlier this season, but the previous 4 games before that they beat us. So I think it was 5-0 the game before that as well. So they've been kind of a bogey team for us historically recently. Anyway, though, more optimistic than I probably would have been on the heels of the Leipzig game based on the last couple of weeks, in particular this one. So we'll see.
We'll see. Not sure my link isn't going through, but we'll make sure we post it there somehow, some way. But game against Wolfsburg Friday, 2:30 game. So you typically when the games are 2:30 Eastern time, I should say. Typically the games on Friday are usually the early game. So it's a normal late slot for the Bundesliga, which I'm happy to see. It's easier for me to watch the game when it's like that. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited. Good to see the healthy bodies coming back, like Vandenberg today, as you mentioned, and some of these other guys starting to get healthy as well. We need them down the stretch. Just keep doing what we're doing. Find a way to break that goal duck. I think 1 goal and maybe floodgates will open. I don't know. Maybe that's the wishful thinking, but just got to get at least a goal. Come on, get a goal and keep the shutouts going. Is that too much to ask for, Jack? It's not too much, is it?
We'll see. Hopefully, man. Hopefully. I mean, it's. I don't know. This season's been weird, and you never know. Bochum winning this past weekend, not helpful, but there's a bunch of other teams that are in bad form as well. And I think if maybe not results, but if performance is what you're going by, we're kind of on the ascendancy, and there's some teams that are continuing to drop. So anything can happen. The math is certainly still there. We have enough games left where it's definitely possible that we could affect something. So fingers crossed.
If you're in the chat, Discord link is dropped. Go check the invite out and join us. And one place to talk about Schalke for the English fan. There's plenty of German Discords going on, but let's do it the English side. Get us all together and talk some Schalke in there. So and we'll definitely take your recommendations and stuff like that on that. So big game. I don't got much else to talk about. No other news, really. No noteworthy news this week. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, at the beginning of the show. This is the 3-year anniversary of Rudi Assauer's passing, and so a lot of obviously thoughts, notes were going around on the Schalke Twitter today about that. So 3 years already, Jack. It seemed like it's just slow by. It seemed like it just happened. So time flies like that, I guess. Anything else you want to talk about today before we wrap this one up?
2 things real quick.
Okay.
I think one thing is I've been seeing some conversations about Tönnies. About him coming back. I think Hub Stevens had a thing that said like he could help the club and the fans have to think about what's right for the club, which I don't think is going to go over well with significant portions of the fan base. But
let's get into that.
I'm saying just something to keep an eye on potentially. There's been some whispers about potentially return for him or some more significant involvement like financially and stuff to help us, and that could be a potential flashpoint between once again the fans and the organization.
It absolutely is, but again, you have to think about it. It's hard to think, right? What all the fans think about him and the point, but we are struggling massively financially. We cannot afford anything, right? We can't even afford a bag of balls, and we're struggling at the bottom of the table, And if somehow we get relegated again, even when we don't get relegated, we're hurting for money. We're so much in debt. Yes, we could use his money, but it's him. It's almost like I'm not gonna call him the devil, but no one looks kindly upon him and everything that he's done, the actions he's done, and so that's like asking an outside billionaire to come in and help us out.
Part of me is conflicted on it just because I don't think that it's necessarily fair to be like this person's beyond redemption forever, and because they made one completely asinine and racist and insensitive statement that they should just be ostracized from society for the rest of their lives indefinitely, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, the fan base basically demanded that he be ousted because of those comments. It's hard to disagree with that.
Yep.
We've managed to secure promotion without his help during that time. So that the idea that we would kind of go back to that well now when we're in the Bundesliga, and also beyond a transfer window for him to really kind of affect things in terms of sort of, an injection of resources to go purchase players. It's just kind of weird that the conversation's happening at this moment. And I think, there's probably some people that are not happy with Hoof Stevens for that. It doesn't seem like the kind of person necessarily cares that much. But
that's why we love him, right?
Obviously he has status as like a club legend, and that might, do something to affect that. But like I said, something to keep an eye on the background, just because I've been hearing more chatter about that recently. So maybe there's something in the works.
And to the counterpoint, with last year being despite the league with not as much financial funds, we found a way, or maybe Rovan Schroeder found a way to get us back 100 million euros, because we were 225, 250 in the hole, and then when we came up, we were 140 in the hole, so we gained back 90 million euros somehow. So we're trending in the right direction. The question is, do you want to, sell your soul and get the financial funds, or wait it out and hope we can can stay in the Bundesliga and keep building upwards and be a solid club going forward financially and independently, I guess.
Well, if Leeds United manage to avoid relegation and they, secure a permanent signing of Weston McKennie, I've heard rumor that we have a cool $900,000 coming our way.
Spending spree.
We can go gangbusters with that. That's a big chunk of change for old Schalke at this point in time.
Yeah, exactly. 900,000. I don't know. Yeah, if they get relegated, we might not see that. He might go back to Juventus. Who knows? But what was the second thing you want to talk about?
That was it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Weston McKennie and RIP Jenny Marsh. Jesse Marsh. This is SchalkeMerica. Jenny Marsh. This is SchalkeMerica after all. Yank Lampard has been relieved of his duties at Leeds United, States of America, unfortunately.
States of America. Yeah.
So we'll see if he takes over the U.S. men's national team job. That's my quick 2 seconds of USA related content. Joe Scally, shout out to him. Good, decent performance in this game.
Sadly, yes, he had a good performance against us, but didn't get an assist, so that's good. Let's on that note, let's wrap things up. Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
At JMMangan, JMMANGAN on Twitter.
Very good. You can follow me at R_KHARMAN anywhere. And again, check out our website, SchalkeMerica.com. Just sent the invite for the Discord in the chat, so definitely come on over. Let's talk some Schalke. And then, next game is on Friday against the Wolfsburg. Hopefully we can find a way to crack the code, the goal code it is, and get some goals in this game. But yeah, Jack, same time next week, I guess, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, beautiful. Well, for Jack, I'm Richard. Schalke fans, thank you for being in the chat today. Loved having a conversation today. So as always, we'll catch you soon. Glück auf.